Are we live? Oh boy.
Up to you.
All right. Friedrich Rebbe said that all we have left is to polish the buttons. So going into our generation of the Rebbe, Nasi Yadar, our job is to complete the Avodah, to bring the Gula. The Rebbe announced the Bas Lagani with Dar Shvi, Dar Achen Shebagalus, Dar Rishon Shebagula, the last generation of Galus, and the first generation of Gula. The same Dharma, it just flips once we hit a certain way, and we march straight in. That's the mission statement of our Dar, where we're holding right now. Meaning Gula is coming. The Rebbe calls it another Sichas, as Makam Patish, the very last thing that completes the Malacha. We know in Hilchas Shabbos, the very last thing that makes the Keli a Kli. It's not even a Avodah or a Malacha in itself. You just finishing, putting the final touches of things that all the previous generations have been very holy people and Yidden all across the world of the entire mitzvahs have been finished. Our Avodah, and we're just trying to get the last pieces together and get it done and bring the Gula. So this was announced right away as we entered into Dar Shvi, and we were zeichet to hear an announcement about 40 years later from the Rebbe took on the Nesias. An announcement that's brought in the Nevuah, the prophet has come in the times of Mashiach, of Hegiyah Zman Gulaschem. Translation, the time has arrived of your redemption. They made this announcement with the first point in Nun Aleph. The idea was mentioned before in Tafshin Nun, but it's fully announced in Nun Aleph, and the Rebbe repeated it many times through yelling and screaming that the time has arrived. Hegiyah Zman Gulaschem became the phrase. This was a published thing. So we'll talk about the historical context, what it means, what does it mean in the actual Nevuah, and what's the Havana, what's the understanding in such an announcement that the Gula is here, because we're sitting here in Morristown, New Jersey, and the Beis HaMikdash should be able to take it from Yad, but it's not quite there. So how do you understand such an idea? First, let's talk about what does it mean, where is this brought, what's the context of this statement that Rebbe has announced. So, Hegiyah Zman Gulaschem is part of Divrei Chazal in the Yalkut Shmeini. Part of the prophecy talks a lot about what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. So, the actual Lashon, Shnas HaMelech HaMashiach Nigla Bei, the way Melech HaMashiach is revealed, all the kings, all the nations, the Umayyas in the world, it's going to be crazy. You're going to have the king of Pras, which is basically the Melech from Iran, and different Arab nations going wild. Threats of war, threats of maybe atomic bombs, that wasn't really mentioned, but the idea is it's going to be cataclysmic, it's going to be wild within the Arab world. And then Yisrael, Misrashim, Misbalim, Eimelechan, Navi, V'nelich. So Yidden naturally start freaking out, the Arabs are going crazy. This was predicted like 2000, how long ago? I don't know the actual.
What was it, Bnei Shema?
Yalkut Shmeini, what time period are we talking about?
Yalkut Shmeini was like 13th, 14th century at least.
Okay, so we're talking like 600, 700 years ago maybe.
Yeah.
No, but what? It's talking about Bnei
So it
Shema?
says, the Arab nations are going to go wild. I'm giving natural types here. And the Yidden are scream out, Leichan Nave V'neilech. The Yidden scream, where are we going to go? The Arabs are getting crazy. What are we going to do? The Eimel Lahem HaKadosh Baruch Yisrael, the Eibishter says to Yidden, Banai al tira'u koma sha'asisi la yasisi ala b'shvilchem chulu. Whatever, don't be afraid. Whatever I've done for your sake. Al tira'u hagiyah zman gulaschem. Don't worry, the time of Gula has arrived. So it continues there in the Madrash, and it says B'shas shemelech HaMashiach ba'u eimed agag Beis HaMikdash. When Melech HaMashiach comes, he stands on the roof of the Beis HaMikdash. And he says to Yidden, Ve'emen Hanavim, he says, Hanavim, my humbled ones, poor ones, Hegiyah Zman Gulaschem. Mashiach announces that Gula has arrived. That's the context within the Yalkut Shmeini. So, when did the Rebbe start saying this? What happened? You read they had the Chassidish there. It was beautifully done. Chassidish there, yeah? It brought in the Gulf War, we're talking Tafshin Nun Aleph, 1991, is you saw that this prophecy in Yalkut Shmeini, which 300, 400 years ago, is practically happening in the Gulf War. You had Iraq, you had other Arab nations that went crazy, and what happened? Yidden started freaking out. Like just like it says in Yalkut Shmoni, what are we going to do? Everyone in Eretz Yisrael was asking the Rebbe, what should we do? Should we leave? Feel like we're going to get bombed? Looks like it's Apitava, doesn't look good. Looks like a lot of people can get killed. And what did the Rebbe say?
Safest place.
Safest place in the world. For people in Yechidus, he announced it. No place safer than Eretz Yisrael. Hashem's watching it from the beginning to the end of the year. Nowhere. And he said Adarab. He said Adarab, not just to the safest place, nothing's going to happen in the Gulf War, but Higiyaz Man Gulaschem. Gul is here. The Rebbe started saying that off. He told different people in Yechidus. It's in Sefer Sichas. This announcement, announced to the Fabringans. And Taka, that's what happened. Yidden were safe. Miracle stories. There are miracle stories of, Scud missiles going into Eretz Yisrael, and like naturally they should bomb and Chas Shalom kill a lot of people, and they hit some certain spot, and Yidden are safe. But wild miracles. That Rebbe announced, it's clear from the Gulf War that we are Taka seeing the fulfillment of Yalkut Shmoni. We're seeing the Vuah about Melech HaMashiach coming and the start of Geula, and it's happening. You see the Arichas in the magazines. I don't know, Seamus, I don't know how often we call that thing out. You can probably still find some in those magazines in there if you want to see the whole thing. So that's the historical context. But let's go into a diuk. What does it mean as Giyaz Man Gulaschem, as the Rebbe is explained in Sichas? What's the general idea? Number one, let's go word by word here. Higiyah. Present tense, future tense, present tense. The Medrash doesn't say that things will happen and then Hashem and Mashiach will cry out, Yigiyah. It will happen.
Past tense.
Yigiyah arrived.
No, Lashon Haven.
It's in the present.
So it
Present, yeah.
says
It's arriving.
It can also be past. Who he gia.
Who's the Israeli? How would you say in the past tense?
No, yeah.
Well,
Yes, now.
Magia
We
is
here.
present.
Yeah, Shab, now.
Yes, but I'm saying.
Magiyah is coming. Higiyah, it's arrived now.
Arriving.
Magia is like you're saying.
Okay, whatever. Higiyah, the point is, it's now. If you want to say it, like just happened, it happened. The time has arrived. It's come. So the point is that it's happening now. Not that it's happening in the future, but Higiyaz Man Gulaschem means the time of Gula started now. And the Rebbe makes the diuk. What's the idea of Higiyah, Lashon Naga, that it's touched? The Rebbe can say, so to speak, we've started to Naga, we started to touch the Gula. The Gula is coming like in a tangible way. Yeah. That we can touch it, we can mamash feel
The
it.
Rebbe says that?
Yeah.
What? On what, on a note, but that's Sicha or what?
Yeah. And I could find I'll find you after class. That's all the guys here. And so Hagiyaz Man, the actual time of Gula is come. That we're holding in that time. The Rebbe other places says in Sefer Sichas, I think it's a bringing from Yud-Tes Kislev. It says, "Yameinu Eidu." In these days, Yimei Mashiach Shem Nimtzayim Achshav. We find ourselves in the time of Yimei Mashiach. Certain announcements made in the So the time has come. Hagiyaz Man, Mamish, it's here right now. Present tense. It's happening. Gula time. So naturally, you hear like an announcement like that. You believe that Rebbe says it. You read it. You see it. You hear about it. But what's the Havana? What's the understanding of such a thing? Because practically the Geula is not here. The Poyel Mamish. Simply, just how the Rambam will categorize it halachically. That what's the real the shleimus of Yimei Mashiach is we have the Chazaras Malchus Beis David. You have the return of the Malchus of David. You have the Beis Hamikdash rebuilt, and you have Kibbutz in Yisrael. You have the Yidden regathered in Yisrael. So what's the idea? Because that's the full Gula. But the Rebbe, the places announces Kol Kol Akitzim, but Kipshute Mamish, everything's finished in a very literal level, and we're still found there. So the Rebbe, it brings like a Gemara to understand it. We know that Chazal says there are basically 6,000 years. Shis Alfi Shanin Dehavi Alma, 6,000 years the world will be. And they're corresponding to the 6 days of Bereshis. And where we find ourselves right now, and actually if you do the math from Tafshin Nun, we're talking 5,750, we find ourselves in Shabbos. Find ourselves Erev Shabbos. Shabbos is Gula. Erev Shabbos, once we're in, Taf, in year 5,000. And we find ourselves after Chatzos, and what's the main point of about to be going into Shabbos? Is like the quarter that everyone brings the last quarter of the hour, which 5,750, that's 250 years left till 6,000, 250 out of 1,000, you basically have 250 left, so to speak, a last quarter of going into Shabbos. So we're standing right there.
Basically, we got to go downstairs and taste the chicken and cook.
Yeah, so we're holding right chronologically as it's predicted, as we've arrived. We're waiting probably to see the shleimus of it, but through other miracles and other things that Rebbe has announced, not just in a way where we can taste it.
It doesn't
We've
mean
had
it doesn't mean we have to wait 250 years. Bro.
Yeah, chas v'shalom, you have to wait that long. But if you just want to see on a chronological level, it makes sense. The holding by Erev Shabbos, so to speak, tasting the cholent. Other things that Rebbe says, and other miracles of the Cold War ending, and all other kinds of things. France, other things we've discussed in this year, we're holding there. So another way to understand it, and here it says maybe you could explain it this way, is we compare the Geula to Geulas Mitzrayim. Right? Like the days of leaving Egypt, I'll show you miracles. We say that it was a tzin, there was the pipeline to lead into the Geula. So everything we can relate back to times of the Geula. Time the Mitzrayim, how the Geula is going to be. So what do we know? When was the Hagiyah Zman Gulaschem, so to speak, Umir Mitzrayim? When did Moshe Rabbeinu tell them? He said, basically the time of Geula has arrived. And when did he say that? When was the time of when he said that, when they left? It was the full year before. He said, Hagiyah Zman Gulaschem were leaving, and they were still slaves. And it was a slow process. Not until they hit Nisan, not until they hit actually Rosh Hashanah. It brings in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, basically from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, they had a stage basically where they were no longer enslaved, but it's described as they were and they weren't serving their masters. They were eating and drinking, and they had like crowns on their heads. They're already ready to go in. And then once they hit Yom Kippur, then they were already, so to speak, freed slaves. And then we waited for the full Geula. But it was a process. Moshe announced Geulas here. 12 months later it takes to actually get there. So, B'derech Efshar, possibly you could say, so to speak, we're holding in this period right now, that it's been announced to Hagiyah Zman Gulaschem, and relatively, we heard this 23, first time we announced it was 22 years ago. 22 years out of a period of 5,770 is really not too long. It's hard to, you have to keep the Emunah going. But in the ways Moshe Rabbeinu announcing, and we're just waiting for the full thing to happen. They even bring B'derech Efshar, you could say, it's talked about these two periods. The one where they're still starting to be freed, but they're still, so to speak, they're still slaves, but they're not like being, not in servitude, and they're like getting ready to go out. And then there's the period where they actually become free. The Rebbe teaches in other places in my Marim, there's Bittul Sha'avu the Adin, Shivu the Adin. One is actually serving the master, the other is that you basically acquire yourself and you're Ben Chaydim, you're a free person. And B'derech Efshar, you could say that it's kind of like this right now. We've had the announcement of Hagiyah Zman Gulaschem, and we've already started to see how the enslavement, so to speak, of Yidden has stopped. The Rebbe points out in Sichas that Russia released all these Yidden. We can see the Geula starting because a place that was totally against Yiddishkeit. Then after the Cold War, they're starting to pay for Yidden to come into Eretz Yisrael and fly back home. That America, that everything's more accessible. In a way, we've had the Shiva, we've had the servitude has been lifted. We're not totally free, but we've had at least the announcement. We're partially free. We can see that we're free to do Torah mitzvahs, and we're waiting. What's the ultimate, so to speak, when we acquire ourselves? We're no longer slaves. We're ben chaydim. That's when we have the Beis Hamikdash, and we establish the Malchus, the Beis David, and everything in Yerushalayim. So you can see the parallel. The point is, we need to have the emunah and the bitachon that Tina is Mashiach ba. The Mashiach is coming. It can happen any second, and it's already started. We're already Hagiyah, Naga. We're already touching the beginnings of the Geula, and we should say it take it from Yad Mamish.
Amen.